A show of unity coming as the G7 summit in France wraps up with a short declaration from world leaders shared by this year's host, French President Emmanuel Macron, saying in part, the G7 is committed to open and fair world trade and to the stability of the global economy. The closing statement striking a positive tone at the end of the three-day gathering, after last year's G7 in Quebec ended with Donald Trump pulling his signature from the final declaration and posting jabs at host Justin Trudeau online. As this year's host highlights what he calls great unity among those taking part in talks, the latest G7 comes amid global economic uncertainty as the world's two largest economies are entangled in a trade war that sent markets plunging last week after China and the U.S. announced tit-for-tat tariffs. Some recovery, though, as the trading week kicked off after China's vice premier said that China was willing to resolve the trade dispute through, quote, calm negotiations. In his closing address from the G7, Trump seemed to welcome the call for calm.
The vice chairman of China came out that he wants to see a deal made. He wants it to be made under calm conditions, using the word calm. I agree with him on that.
The U.S. president adding he thinks China is sincere about resolving the bitter trade dispute.
I think a deal is going to be made, but they want to make a deal.
With the latest G7 summit just wrapping up, the focus already shifting to the next gathering when Trump hosts world leaders in the U.S. And Trump says he'd be open to inviting Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Is it good? Probably not. Maybe it is. I mean, a lot of people are smart. A lot of people say having Russia, which is a power, having them inside the room is better than having them outside the room.
Russia was pushed out of the then G8 in 2014 because of its annexation of Crimea from Ukraine. The French president says G7 leaders had not reached a consensus over the weekend on inviting Russia to next year's G7 summit, explaining the decision would depend on Russia's behavior regarding the crisis in Ukraine. Trudeau says Canada does not support bringing Russia back to the G7, citing Moscow's aggression and illegal annexation of Crimea.